Hello and welcome back to types of trapezoids. Today we're going to be talking about two types of trapezoids, non-isosceles and isosceles trapezoids. So first discuss the properties of non-isosceles trapezoids. First thing, only one pair of opposite sides are parallel. Okay, so in our picture, we have this top side and this bottom side. We call those base. Okay, these two are parallel, and the two over here on the left and the right are not. Okay, so that's what it's talking about when it says we have one pair of opposite sides parallel. The other thing about non-isosceles trapezoids is that consecutive angles are supplementary. Remember, consecutive angles are the ones that are next to each other. So these two right here add to 180. These two add to 180. These two add to 180, and these two add to 180. Okay, now we're going to take a look at isosceles trapezoids. Isosceles trapezoids have all of the same properties as non-isosceles trapezoids, so the ones above, plus these four. Non-parallel sides are congruent. Okay, so we call those the legs. In the picture, these two right here, they're not parallel. Call these legs. And those sides are congruent. Number two, diagonals are congruent. So these dotted lines that you see on your paper, these are the same length. Base angles are congruent. Okay, the base angles, in trapezoids we call these, the parallel lines, we call those the base sides, the bases. Okay, the base angles are the large angles. These are congruent, and then these two are congruent to each other. And lastly, we have opposite angles are supplementary. Remember, opposite is across from each other, so these two add to 180, and these two add to 180. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at a few examples. Number one. Okay, we're going to find the missing values for K and M in the trapezoid. Okay, so we're going to apply our rules. The first thing that we're going to take a look at is angle K. Okay, K is up here. I'm going to do this one in black. Okay, for K, we know that consecutive angles are supplementary because this trapezoid is not an isosceles trapezoid. Okay, these two side lengths over here are not the same, so we're looking only at the non-isosceles. So the only thing that we know about angles in this trapezoid is that consecutive angles are supplementary. So it doesn't matter which ones I choose. Actually, it does matter. Okay, I'm choosing these two right here. So angle K plus 51 degrees is equal to 129, or I'm sorry, 180. And then I subtract 51 on both sides, and we get that angle K is 129. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for M. I'm going to do M in red. Okay, so M plus the 87 equals 180. We do our math and we get 93 degrees for angle M. Okay, now we're going to take a look at number 3. This time we have an X involved. Okay, so we're solving for X. That's what it wants us to do. So I'm going to take these two things that I know, and I'm going to say that they're consecutive angles, and the consecutive angles are supplementary. So I have 54 plus my 8x plus 6, and that is equal to 180. 54 plus 6 makes 60, So 60 plus 8x is equal to 180. Subtract 60 on both sides. 8x equals 120. Divide by 8. Get x equals 15. There we go. Found x. Okay, now let's take a look at a few isosceles trapezoid examples. Okay, in problem number 5, this first problem right here, all we're doing is we're telling which sides are congruent to each other. So the first side, DG, okay, that's a leg because it's not parallel. The two legs are congruent, so DG is congruent to EF. Okay, now the second side, or the second segment that we're looking for is DF. Okay, DF is in red. That's a diagonal. It connects two corners, or two opposite angles together. Okay, so let's find the other one. The other one's DE, or GE, I'm sorry. Okay, up here, for our properties, we said that diagonals are congruent. That's why DF is congruent to GE. Okay, you can do the same thing with the angles in number 6. Alright, number 7. We're going to find QR and S. So we're going to apply consecutive angles are supplementary, along with base angles are congruent and opposite angles are supplementary. Okay, the first thing that they want us to do is to find Q. Okay, so here's Q. Q is a base angle. So what I'm going to do with it, so I'm going to set it equal to the other base angle. Okay, so here's one, here's the other. That's 112 degrees. Okay, now for R. Got two different ways to do this one. We can either do angle Q plus angle R is equal to 180, or you can say that 112 plus R is equal to 180, because these are opposite and these are consecutive. So either way that you do it would be correct. I'm going to do the opposite ones because we've already seen consecutive. So I have 112 plus angle R equals 180. Subtract 112 from both sides, and we get angle R is equal to 68. So R is 68 degrees. That means that S is going to be the same as R because they're both base angles. And if you forgot that rule or that property, then you could use the consecutive angles or the opposite angles. Let's take a look at 2 on the back side. Okay, the first one we're going to look at is number 10. Okay, number 10 wants us to find every single angle measure. So A, B, C, and D. Up here they tell us that this is an isosceles trapezoid. Okay, so we know that base angles are congruent. We know that opposite angles are supplementary. Okay, so when they give us x's, we have to figure out the relationship between the two x's that they gave to us. Okay, so here's one, here's the other. So we're looking at angles D and C. Those are base angles. So we're going to set them equal to each other. So we have 2x plus 27 equals 5x minus 12. I'm just solving for x. Add 12 to both sides. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. 12's cancel out. These 2's cancel out. And I get 39 is equal to 3x. Divide both sides by 3. We get x is equal to 13. Okay, now what do we do with this 13? Well, first thing we have to do is we have to plug 13 back in for the x. It doesn't matter which one you plug it into. You could plug it in to C, or if you wanted to, you could plug it into D. Really does not matter. Okay, just for number's sake, I'd prefer addition over subtraction, so I'm going to plug it into D. So we've got 2 times 13 plus 27, and this is equal to angle D. Okay, so here I got 26 plus 27. Okay, and what that gives us is 53 degrees. Okay, so I can plug into 53 to D. Remember that we said that C is equal to D, so I'm going to plug in 53 to that one as well. Okay, now I'm going to find angle A and angle B. Remember, either way that you do this problem, opposite angles are supplementary and consecutive angles are supplementary. So I can say that our 53 plus, and I'm just going to choose angle A, plus angle A is equal to 180. Subtract my 53 on both sides, and I get angle A is equal to 127. Okay, for number 12, very similar to number 10. In this problem, I'm only going to solve for the x. Okay, so here we have opposite angles. We know that opposite angles are supplementary. So we have 10x plus 5, and I'm adding, because supplementary means that you add two angles together and they equal 180. Okay, so here's my equation, 10x plus 5 plus 6x minus 1 equals 180. I get 16x, so I'm combining all the x's. I combine all the numbers. I have 5 plus a negative 1. That makes positive 4. Subtract 4 from both sides. I get 16x equals 176. Divide by 16. And then we get x equals 11. Okay, now with the x, remember you got to take it, plug it back in to both to figure out your angles. 10 times 16 plus 5 is equal to 115. That means that x is 115. And then if we do 6 times 11, sorry, I told you the wrong number up here. They should both be 11. Minus 1, 6 times 11 minus 1 is equal to 65. There we go. That solves that problem.